In 1995, the world was given the competitive and broken Mortal Kombat 3. Gameplay-wise, this was a pretty big departure from Mortal Kombat 2. Later that same year came the much more popular version of the game, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. There were some pretty big technical changes between the two versions, and I'll touch on some of those in this review. Mortal Kombat 3 feels like a post-apocalyptic game. Many of the stages are on Earthrealm, but they are empty and desolate. There are a couple of stages that feel more like Mortal Kombat 2, but the game has a different tone in general. The game looks great and it holds up pretty well. UMK3 added more stages but removed the bank and changed the portal stage interestingly enough. The biggest non-technical change is the addition to the roster from MK3. MK3 didn't have series poster boy and Ed Boon's favorite character Scorpion for some reason, but they included him along with Jade, Katana, and Reptile, bringing back some popular characters. On top of those characters, you could unlock classic Sub-Zero, Melina, and my homeboy Ermac. Human Smoke is also playable by holding a couple of inputs during the versus screen when you are playing as Robo Smoke. He's also one of the best characters in the game. The soundtrack is really good, and it's probably my favorite in the series. These songs are actually a lot more upbeat and provide a certain sense of urgency which adds to the combat. UMK3 brings back all the alities from Mortal Kombat 2 and adds animalities and mercies. The fatalities are really over the top and silly, and I know Mortal Kombat has its humorous moments like friendships and whatnot, but some of these fatalities are just stupid. Animalities are a nice addition, but to do them you need to initiate a mercy. A mercy is done after beating your opponent in the third round and they come back with a little bit of health. If you beat them again, you can do an animality. The finishers in this game aren't the worst in this series by any means, but they aren't nearly as good overall as some of the other games. Controls follow the series standard except for the run button. Control-wise, everything else should be familiar if you have played any of the previous MK games. I hated the run button as a kid, but going back it's actually a really awesome addition. Running and doing combos uses up stamina, represented by the green bar below your health. Running can also help extend combos, which is both useful and fun to do once you get juggling down. This is definitely the smoothest playing 2D Mortal Kombat game and it holds up pretty well. Now in terms of gameplay, the run button isn't the only change from Mortal Kombat 2. Chain combos, or dial-up combos as they're also known, were introduced. These are custom combo strings that have predetermined inputs. Some of these combos can be cancelled with a jump to further juggle your opponent. The only time you can't jump cancel is in the corner to avoid ridiculous corner shenanigans. Speaking of juggling, that became a pretty big thing in this game. Juggling was present in the previous MK games, but MK3 really took that idea and ran with it. Like the run button, they ran with it. Yeah? Yeah? No? No one like that? Sorry, it's just hard to juggle all of this at once. Okay, I'll stop. Juggling is a pretty core element, and it's apparent when you notice that special moves don't do nearly as much damage as they did before. A good example of this is Liu Kang's bicycle kick. It does around 10% damage in UMK3, whereas it did around 30% damage in Mortal Kombat 2. This compensates for the longer combos you are able to perform, because if the moves did any more damage, the game would be broken. Oh wait, MK3 and UMK3 are already really broken. Fun? Yes. Competitive? Yes. Balanced and fair? Hell no. MK3 is the more broken game, but UMK3 is still pretty broken. This scenario is actually very similar to Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and its Ultimate variant. UMVC 3 fixed some game-breaking and unfair issues, but it was far from balanced. Same with MK3 and UMK3. Interestingly enough, MK3 and UMK3 were released in the same year, and MVC3 and UMVC3 were also released in the same year. In casual play, none of this really matters, but in intermediate and pro play, this stuff is a game changer. Let's start with run jabs, a common technique in which you alternate running and jabbing to apply pressure. In MK3, you stayed within close proximity to your opponent, allowing for extremely aggressive pressure that was hard to escape. In UMK3, they get pushed farther, which makes it harder to abuse. Roundhouses, or back and high kick, didn't push you back, allowing for some absurd corner juggles with certain characters. This, along with many infinites, were removed in UMK3. Many characters also got individual balance changes that make it a better competitive game as well. Spoiler alert, Cabal was ridiculous in both versions. There were also 2 added game modes, Endurance Style Versus, where both players pick 2 characters for 2-on-2 combat, and a single round tournament mode with 8 characters. Arcade mode also has multiple ladder difficulties to appease both casuals and experts. UMK3's arcade mode can be challenging, and it is definitely harder than MK3 where the CPU was just stupid. Endurance is also back in arcade mode if you choose one of the harder towers. The game seems fair, but then Shao Kahn comes in with his bullshit. After you beat Motaro, who by the way has moves that make absolutely no sense, like teleportation, like what is that? You get your ass handed to you by Shao Kahn. You can beat him pretty easily the first round, but the second round he is having none of your shit. It can be frustrating, and I feel like he is the hardest ladder boss in the 2D MKs. Kentaro was hard, but a big part of why he and Shao Kahn were beatable was the fact that he had no anti-airs. Shao Kahn's upward knee makes this so much harder because of the CPU reading your inputs. Impossible? No, but you won't have fun fighting him. Regardless of that, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is still a really fun, if not slightly broken game. Many of the additions are awesome and pulling off combos is really fun. The 2011 Mortal Kombat reboot and Mortal Kombat X both took their gameplay styles from the Mortal Kombat 3 series. After playing this and actually enjoying a function I used to hate, I could not be more excited for Mortal Kombat X. It's definitely not perfect and it's really unbalanced, but that doesn't stop it from being enjoyable and a high tier fighting game that jump-started the competitive Mortal Kombat scene. Thank you for watching my review on Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and I'll be finishing off with Mortal Kombat's first jump into 3D, MK4. It might be a shorter one due to timing unfortunately, but I'll try to mention as many things as I can. But for now, leave any feedback down below, mash the like and sub buttons, and stay godlike fighting game fans.